Welcome at the second day of the Organic Innovation Days. For those who joined us yesterday, I hope you found it interesting and that you have gained new insights, that you had a nice afternoon and a relaxing evening. For those that only joined today, welcome to the Organic Innovation Days indeed. Today we have two parallel sessions. You are in a parallel session, opportunities for organics in Horizon Europe. If you wanted to join the Live Seed European workshop, then you are in the wrong session and then you can click on the other link in the agenda. So in this session, we will focus on Horizon Europe and in particular a new policy instrument, namely the missions and in particular the mission for soil health and food. First, we'll have a keynote speech by Emile Frisson, expert of IPES Food, a member of the Mission Board for Soil Health and Food. Afterwards, we'll hear from the Commission their views and their plans for Horizon Europe. And after the break, we will have a policy debate. So now we have first Emile Frisson. Please, Emile, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bram. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I will talk about the contribution of diversified agroecological systems and innovation within that for sustainable agriculture and food systems. I cannot move my slides, apparently. My slides don't move. Can I have some help, please?
Now it's moved. Yes, we see the next slide.
Yep. In the last 2 or 3 years, there's been an impressive number of major reports, including from IPBES, the IPCC report, the Global Sustainable Development Report, reports by the high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition, and also recently the mission on soil health and food that was mentioned. They all call for transformational change. We cannot just continue with incremental changes to our current model of agriculture. And whether we start from underperforming subsistence agriculture or unsustainable industrial agriculture, we must converge towards diversified agroecological farming that is addressing the challenges that we are facing today. So we are talking about a different paradigm, a real transformation towards diversified agroecological systems. And that is a holistic, integrated approach to reach simultaneously economic, environmental, climate mitigation and adaptation, health, social, and cultural objectives. This can be characterized by a set of 10 elements of agroecology that have been produced by FAO 2 years ago. And they include things like diversity, resilience, synergies, recycling, etc. But also an important aspect is the co-creation and sharing of knowledge and taking into account human and social values, also culture and food traditions within the context of circular and solidarity economy and responsible governance. So this is really describing this new paradigm, and agroecology is therefore not just a set of agricultural practices or innovation among others, such as climate smart agriculture or nutrition sensitive agriculture or precision agriculture, that each have a specific objective, but rather it takes all the innovations that are compatible with these 10 elements and combine it with the traditional farmer knowledge through co-innovation. So it involves equally changing the social relations, empowering farmers, adding value locally, privileging short value chains, and reconnecting consumers with producers. So this new paradigm means that agroecology is not like some people say, yes, it's one tool in the toolbox and we must use all the tools. It is a different toolbox altogether. And within that, we select the set of practices that are adapted to the local conditions, identified through co-innovation. It has now been well demonstrated that from an economic point of view, these systems can produce equally well to conventional or industrial agriculture, that they generally produce a better income, and what is important, that they have a much better resilience and stability, which is very important and even more important today with the challenges of climate change. Just one slide about economic performance in a paper that was recently published about the European situation, where the economic performance in these different European countries of agroecological practices was between 15 and 110% better than conventional agriculture. Also, large numbers of farmers are already practicing different forms of agroecological innovations. And I'll take the case of India, where in Andhra Pradesh, there are already more than 600,000 farmers practicing this model of agriculture, and more than 1 million in the whole of India. And that we have seen there increases in productivity of about 20%, with a net income increase of about 50%. So this really shows that in different conditions, these systems can perform well. A recent study by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission has also analyzed the potential of agroecological practices in developing countries, showing the real potential of these systems. From an environmental point of view, it's really important, their contribution is really important because it allows to put carbon back in the soil and turning agriculture into a solution rather than a problem, which it is today. It's boosting biodiversity and, importantly, restoring degraded land. When we know that we have 1/3 of the agricultural land today that is degraded in the world, we cannot leave that aside and continue deforestation. We must restore these degraded lands, and that's where agroecology can do that. But also at the same time improve ecosystem services such as water recycling, nutrient recycling, pest and disease control, pollination, etc. Now, coming to the European situation, we have here in Europe also realized that the issue of soil health is a critical one, and one that has really is compromising our possibility to have sustainable agriculture in the future. And the European Commission decided to create a mission on soil health and food, and I'm a member of the mission board. The objective of the mission is really, which is called Caring for Soil is Caring for Life. And the mission aims to ensure that 75% of soils are healthy by 2030 for food, people, nature, and climate. This is an ambitious goal, but one that must be given priority considering the urgency of the transformational change that I was referring to. So what do we want to achieve in the mission? Well, at least 75% of all soils are either healthy or show a significant measurable improvement for all indicators, where the levels are below accepted levels. This can be achieved by a focus on reducing land degradation, which I mentioned already is a very important priority, with a goal to restore 50% of degraded land by 2030, conserving and increasing soil carbon with goals to increase by 0.1 to 0.4% per year. Also stop soil sealing and reuse non-agricultural land in urban areas, to reduce soil pollution and enhance restoration with a goal to have at least 25% of EU farmland under organic agriculture, and an additional 5 to 25% of land with reduced risk of eutrophication, reduced pesticides and antimicrobials, and doubling the rate of restoration of polluted sites to prevent erosion and stop erosion, to improve soil structure, but also to look at our impact on our global footprint in the goods that we are importing and reducing by 20 to 40% our global footprint with the import of material, and significantly improve soil literacy in member states. The people must know more why healthy soils are important. So how do we go about meeting those objectives? This will involve strategic research and innovation priorities. An important aspect is really a focus on transdisciplinarity and co-innovation. It will involve a dense network throughout all countries of Europe of living labs and lighthouses to innovate, to co-innovate with farmers and demonstrate the possibilities to other farmers. We've identified a set of 8 indicators that will be monitored to monitor the status of soil health. An important aspect is also to strengthen independent advisory service for farmers and foresters, which has been very much neglected in past years, and engaging the citizens and society at large. People in general must understand that we need to change the way that we are treating soil, and the consumers have a role to play there as well in buying the right kind of food that has been produced sustainably. And finally, of course, changing the policies that will provide incentives for the necessary changes. So agroecology is really contributing to achieving all of these objectives. And it's a system that represents a powerful approach, not only to improve soil health, but at the same and restore degraded land, but at the same time to contribute to better nutrition and health and improving the profitability of farmers. So a question is, with all that knowledge, how come that we are not seeing a more rapid transition towards these diversified agroecological systems? Well, we identified at IPES Food a number of obstacles or lock-ins, and I don't have time to go through all of them in detail. You can find the detail in the IPES Food report, from uniformity to diversity, but I will just highlight a few. Path dependency. If farmers have specialized in, let's say, cereal production, they have invested in equipment to specialize in these crops. The whole marketing and transport and storage facilities are adapted for that. And moving towards more diversified systems will require incentives to compensate for these investments that have been made. Another one is the feed the world narratives. We hear from people that have vested interest in maintaining the status quo that by 2050 we will be 9 billion, 10 billion people, and implicitly saying, and therefore we need to put more pesticides and more synthetic fertilizers in order to avoid starvation, omitting to say that there are sustainable alternatives to achieve the same result. A very important one also is the measures of success. As long as we only look at tons per hectare or yield of a given crop as the main indicator of success or the main objective, we will not be able to make the transition. We must look at what really matters to society, which is have better nutrition and have it accessible to people, to have more equitable livelihoods, total production, total biomass production, also the ecosystem services that are provided in agricultural systems that are not valued today. And finally, the consequence of the concentration of power that we see in agribusiness today, where just a few, mainly input providers, are controlling 50% up to 70% of the market and have a very strong influence on the policies in various countries. and this must be countered. So the good news is that the transition is really underway, and IPS Food has produced a report on case studies demonstrating the potential of these approaches at a farm level, at a community level, at a regional level, and at a country level. And various other bodies have also been showing case studies. FAO has a whole website demonstrating this, and other organizations as well. What has been clear is that we need to have these changes implemented in multiple ways, with changes in production practices, but at the same time changes in knowledge generation and transmission, changes in social and economic relations, changes in institutional frameworks. So as a conclusion, we are of course starting from different starting points, whether we are in underperforming subsistence agriculture or in unsustainable industrial agriculture. But in both cases, we must converge towards these diversified agroecological systems that are sustainable. And what we don't want to see is, and which is still happening, unfortunately, is that unsustainable or underperforming subsistence agriculture is pushed to become following a model of industrial agriculture that is not sustainable. That should not continue. So with that, I am concluding here, and I thank you for your attention, and I am available to answer any questions.
Thanks a lot, Emil, for your presentation and for putting so clearly the challenges that are ahead of us, in particular for restoring soil health, but also to make agriculture more environmental friendly and more diversified, and what agroecology can contribute to this. I think you rightly pointed out that agroecology is not just another tool, but a different toolbox. And to explain or to help farmers to implement this toolbox, they would need advice. And there's a question from the audience: what support advisors and facilitators can provide to farmers to implement these new practices, and also what support these advisors can receive in order that they are able to help the farmers? Could you comment on that, please?
Well, unfortunately, still the education system in agricultural science is largely focused on what I would call the industrial model of agriculture, where we are optimizing the application of synthetic fertilizers. We are showing which pesticides to use for which pests, etc. But fortunately, more and more programs of agroecology and research on organic agriculture are developing in different parts of the world. But what is important is that we move away from a model where research is first done in a laboratory and then on experimental fields, and then are passed on to farmers with, you shall do this. And that doesn't work. I think that has been well demonstrated, and that's why we have to move towards participatory research and co-innovation, which has really been demonstrated to be very powerful on adapting local solutions to local problems, and not come up with a technology that was thought to be a silver bullet, but doesn't answer the questions that farmers have under their circumstances. So a change in the way that we approach innovation through co-innovation and marrying scientific knowledge with the knowledge of the farmers and their own local circumstances.
Thanks a lot, Emil, for this clarification. There are two more questions about the health status of soils. So there is quite ambitious targets to achieve soil health in 10 years. But what do we know about the current soil health? Is there any reference study or reference data about what is the current status of soil health, and to be able to compare that and where we need to go to?
Well, it is estimated that more than half, or probably 2/3 of our current soils are degraded to some extent, some of it severely degraded. And of course, saying we want to have 75% of soil healthy in 10 years is very ambitious. And people are saying, well, is that possible? There is an enormous amount still of knowledge to be developed, especially regarding the soil biome. In the past, soil science has been dominated by soil physics and soil chemistry, and not enough attention has been spent on soil biology, while we know now that really healthy soils are soils that have a very diverse and rich soil microbiome. And the potential of the soil microbiome to fix carbon in the soil, it's not just by bringing organic material to the field that you fix carbon in the soil. It's much more through the microorganisms that are taking the exudates from plants and fixing it into humus in the soil. And I think the relationship between the diversity and the richness of the soil microbiome and the diversity of plants is one area that has in recent years shown tremendous potential, where we've seen very rapid increases in soil health, improvements in soil health, by having a much greater diversity of plants, which allowed a greater diversity and greater numbers of soil microbes to be present in the soil, and that play a key role in increasing carbon in the soil.
Okay, so you seem to be confident that these ambitious targets of reaching 75% healthy soils by 2030 can be achieved if we have the right research in place and if we have the right instruments in place to help farmers to adopt these new practices. Because indeed, it's only 10 years, meaning 2 crop rotation cycles. What else is needed? Are there enough financial means also connected to this to make these great investments?
Well, it will all depend on where the financial means are invested. I must say I'm still quite disappointed with the current, the way the current common agricultural policy seems to be going, where still a substantial part of the investments are going on the basis of a per hectare subsidy. And where not enough is linked to really practices that improve soil health. I think if the entire investment in agriculture through the Common Agricultural Policy budget was allocated to support improvements, I think we can achieve these goals. It will all depend on the incentives that are given to farmers. We cannot expect farmers to take on the responsibility of doing that if they don't have the necessary incentives and the necessary support to do that. So that will require a redirection of a more significant part of the agricultural budgets that support this transformation, but also a much greater investment in the extension services that should work in this form of co-innovation. Many farmers in Europe and elsewhere get their advice principally now from input suppliers that tell them which variety to plant, which fertilizer to put at which stage, and which pesticide to spray at which stage. And that is the only advice they are getting. And farmers almost become tractor drivers to implement that. So we must really rehabilitate their role as co-innovators with independent research and extension.
Indeed, the role of farmers is crucial, and they need to be supported and get the right incentives. But in your talk, you also mentioned the need for new institutional arrangements to enhance agroecology. Could you explain a bit more what you mean with these new institutional arrangements?
Well, I think it is the involvement also of farmers in in setting the policies that will influence their world. There has been too little empowerment of farmers in deciding their future, and I think that is one very important aspect if you want to see the necessary changes to take place. So it's not just decisions that are being made at the national level. It must be really involving farmers at the local level, and recreating also the links between consumers and producers. And where we are seeing a lot of innovation taking place is exactly in that, with shorter value chains that provide for better income by farmers, more healthy food for the consumers, and where people again start to understand where their food comes from and not just from the supermarket, and where people will make that will influence the choices that people make about the food they buy. So it's really looking at not only farmers in isolation, but the role of farmers with consumers in society.
Thanks a lot. There are no more questions coming from the audience, so I invite again everybody to post questions in the chat if you have any. In the meantime, I can ask another question. We are the Organic Innovation Days, so we are of course really interested also to hear about organic. You didn't mention it in your talk, but we see organic farmers in Europe as the pioneers of agroecology. They are usually organic farmers that are the first ones to implement organic agroecological practices, and also to further develop them. So how do you see this relationship between organic farmers and agroecology?
Well, you are absolutely right, and if you look at the basic principles of organic farming, going back to the origin of organic agriculture, it is really very close to the 10 elements of agroecology, and so the commonalities are very great. The reason why I'm not just mentioning it is because we are seeing an increasing tendency now that the organic market has expanded rapidly with 2-digit growth figures per year. We are seeing a greater interest in industrializing organic agriculture, and just because something is certified organic doesn't mean it has been produced sustainably, and doesn't mean that the social conditions in which it has been produced are equitable or just. And when you have conditions that are unfortunate, but that do exist, where things are certified organic, but the workers that are employed, this often seasonal workers that are employed, that are underpaid, that live in miserable conditions, I think we must find a way to distinguish organic production that has been following all the principles of organic farming, and the as I say, the equivalent to the 10 elements of agroecology, from the misuse and I would say a co-optation of the term to just satisfy the minimum requirements for certification, but not caring about the basic principles of organic agriculture.
Thanks a lot for this explanation. Yeah, unfortunately, there are indeed in some cases organic production that is perhaps not really connected to the original principles, but hopefully the debate around agroecology can also inspire these organic farmers to do better. There is one final question before we go to the next speaker, and that is, where do you think there are the biggest research needs for agroecology with regard to animal farming?
Well, I think we must really move away from the industrial production of animals that are causing not only environmental risks, but also are of concern from the point of view of the origin of zoonosis. But the reintroduction of animals in diversified farming systems is a much more sustainable way, and one that allows also for nutrient recycling and the diversification that goes along with that. So I think moving away from the industrial production of meat and dairy towards reintegrating that into diversified systems where the feeding of the animals is based on things that are not essentially grain-fed, and where we compete with human nutrition, but going back to use animals to bring in food that is not edible, or using food that is not edible by humans, and therefore complementing the human nutrition rather than competing with production for food.
Thanks a lot, Emil, for your contribution and for answering all the questions from the audience. If we were in a real live event, I would ask for a round of applause now. I will just do it this way, and I hope the others can do that also from their homes. We will go now to Susana Gauno-Sayes, who is a Research Programming Officer at the Research Innovation Unit. We will go now to Susana Gauno-Sayes, who is a Research Programming Officer at the Research Innovation Unit of the Directorate General for Agriculture and Rural Development. She will explain us what we can expect of Horizon Europe. We are still in 2020, coming to an end, so Horizon 2020 also coming to an end. And we're looking forward what the new research innovation framework will bring, and in particular then what it will bring for organic food and farming. Please, Susana, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Bram. Thank you. First of all, can you hear me well? Okay, I start. I assume I can be heard. So as Bram indicated, I am Susana Gauno-Sayes. I'm indeed Research Program Officer in the DG Agri of the European Commission. I work in the Research and Innovation Unit. I am in particular responsible for programming research in the areas of agroecology, organic farming, and also others such as mixed farming, agroforestry, which are all related. So I've been asked, and I would like to first of all thank you very much for this invitation, because it's a pleasure always to be with you, to be with the sector. Of course, it's a pity that we cannot see each other in person, but due to the circumstances, we have to do it like this, and it's still good to exchange. So I've been asked to present or to explain what is going to be the role of research and innovation in agroecology and organic farming in Horizon Europe. Of course, we are at the moment, as we speak, we are finalizing, or we're still preparing the first draft of the first work program of Horizon Europe from 2021 to 2022. So I am unfortunately not going to be able to discuss or to present to you in concrete terms the content of the work program, but I will try to give you some indications or where we are heading in relation to agroecology and organic farming. So I think it's first good to say, to mention, to remind that we are not starting from scratch. Indeed, already in Horizon 2020, that is, as Bram indicates, finishing already this year, we have invested quite a big amount of EU funding in research in ecological approaches, which includes, of course, agroecology and organic farming. We identified already 4 years ago ecological approaches from farm to landscape as one of the priorities for agri-research. So this is, of course, translated into close to 40 projects dealing with the challenges of agroecology, including also organic farming, for an amount of around 240 million euro already invested. And in concrete terms, when we look at the specific challenges of organic farming, we have had 8 organic projects, so to say, and 1 ERANET, core organic, sorry, that has been actually quite successful in promoting synergies and common joint programming among the member states, specifically in organic. So the amount devoted is, you can see in the screen, 46 million euro EU funding, collaboration with a high number of member states and many more partners. This is just an overview of some of those projects, the ones devoted really to organic challenges. You can see at the top, even also thematic networks like biofruit nets, not so long ago launched. But of course, organic is also part of other projects that perhaps are not conceived as, let's say, addressing specifically the challenges of organic farming, but they also benefit, of course, the objectives of organic farming, such as projects on weed management, alternatives, methods to deal with weeds, etc. Of course, all these projects also benefit the organic sector and agroecology. So we should see it in a wider perspective. I think it's before entering into the into Horizon Europe and to the programming and to how this organic and agroecology feature there, I think it's important to look at the ongoing policy priorities and the policy context in the European Union. Of course, we have the CAP with its objectives and the possibilities to promote more sustainable farming practices, including recently this council agreement on the eco schemes and the possibility to have support to specifically organic farming, agroecology, and also agroforestry, for instance, under these eco schemes. This is an important and interesting possibility. But of course, we also have the European Green Deal and the ambitions to make of Europe the first climate neutral continent in the world. And there we also see, of course, an important role of the agricultural sector, and interesting opportunities also for agroecology and for organic farming, because we believe really that these two approaches can really help greatly in achieving those objectives. And notably, we have the objectives set up in the Farm to Fork strategy and also biodiversity strategy that specifically refer to these sectors, and they are, I think, very important in guiding not only actions on policy side, but also on the research and innovation side. I should say that these are not the only two relevant strategies for agroecology and organic. Of course, there are others ambitions under the European Green Deal, such as the zero pollution targets that are also relevant for these farming practices, and also the, for instance, the Climate Pact. So we shouldn't see it only as relevant for these two strategies because it's really cross-cutting even. So very briefly, I believe you all know about the Farm to Fork strategy, and that you know the objectives is really aimed to foster the transition to a healthy, sustainable, and food system in Europe, really ensuring that we have neutral or positive impact, environmental impact on food production. So make sure that this is reduced as much as possible. Also ensure food security and public health, very, very important as well, and also preserve the affordability of food. In regards, with regard to the weight of agroecology and organic farming in the strategy, you of course know about the mention that there is an urgent need to reduce the dependency on pesticides, antimicrobials, reduce excess fertilization, increase organic farming, improve animal welfare, reverse biodiversity loss, and all of this is very, very relevant, of course, also for agroecological approaches in a wider sense. In terms of concrete, more concrete research and innovation aspects, the strategy mentions this the partnership, the candidate partnership on agroecology, living labs, and research infrastructures that we are proposing for co-funding under Horizon Europe. So it's going to be, it's identified in the strategy as an important tool to foster new knowledge and innovation to scale up agroecological approaches in primary production through the living laboratories. This has been already mentioned by Emil before, and maybe we can talk a little bit later about it. In terms of the targets, of course, you know that it's an important, one of the important targets of the Farm to Fork strategy concerns directly the organic sector, and is really reaching at least 25% of the EU's agricultural land under organic farming by 2030, and a significant increase in organic aquaculture. Also very, very important, of course. In relation to the CAP, as you know, it fosters or it identifies or pushes a bit, let's say, the CAP to really identify these new eco schemes that should offer a major stream of funding for agroecology, including organic farming and other sustainable farming practices. With regard to the EU biodiversity strategy, is equally important. It's really aiming to ensure that Europe's biodiversity will be on the path to recovery by 2030. And it's also important that to highlight that the strategy recognizes the importance to work with farmers and to support and incentivize transition to fully sustainable practices together with them. In terms of the mention of the agroecology and organic farming in the strategy, you have it on the screen. Is pretty much mirroring what the farm to fork strategy already says. So this is just an overview of the key targets identified by the farm to fork strategy. Of course, we have the one at the end on organic farming, but I think we should look at also the others, because I wouldn't see them as separated in silos. For me, organic farming and agroecology will also provide a key contribution to reducing 50% of chemical pesticides, and also in terms of nutrient losses and reduction of fertilizers, agroecology and organic farming can provide a key contribution. For instance, if you think about the use of legume crops in terms of the minimizing the use of nitrogen fertilizers, and also in the case of animal production, they're reducing the antimicrobials and used in farm animals in aquaculture. It's also important to mention. Of course, these targets should be reminded that these targets are not legally binding, but of course they are going to play an important role when we evaluate the EU policies, and also when the member states will need to define the CAP strategic plans. They will need to consider their objectives and targets in defining those. And of course, it's also important to remember that besides these targets quantified, as we can see, there are also many other objectives that don't have, let's say, numerical targets per se, but are also equally important to mention. And for instance, we have promotion of healthy and sustainable food consumption. We have improving animal welfare, etc. So these are also important objectives that we should not forget, not because they don't have a number attached to it. And also research and innovation has a role also to play in ensuring that these are catered for. So we see, of course, the European Green Deal, and we see as research and innovation are key enablers for achieving the objectives of the European Green Deal. When we come to Horizon Europe, very quickly, I will just remind of the structure. So Horizon Europe is going to be the new research and innovation program for the European Union from 2021 to 2027. It has a new structure when you compare to the current Horizon 2020. And in particular, what is interesting, I think, for most of us, or most of you, I should say, is what we can see under Pillar 2 on global challenges in European industrial competitiveness, which is divided according to clusters. The most interesting one for the agricultural sector is the one on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. You can see that in green, but it doesn't mean that the others are not relevant. For instance, on health and in digital, there are also interlinkages with what we can do on agricultural activities under the cluster 6. As you may know, the Commission proposed budget for this cluster of 10 billion euro. As you also know or may know, the negotiations on the annual financial framework are not yet finalized. This is still, of course, pending some political discussions, as you know, and until we don't have that agreement, we don't know exactly how much money we are going to have for basically for funding activities under this cluster. But this is hopefully going to be known soon. But in the meantime, we need to proceed with the programming, and we are working a bit with assumptions in this regard. In terms of the cluster 6, just to quickly mention that it is considered, or it's divided in 7 intervention areas that you can see in the slide. The most relevant one for agricultural and for agroecology and organic farming, of course, are the one under the intervention areas on agriculture, forestry, and rural areas. But I should say that not only, and we are here again not working in silos according to intervention areas, it is also most relevant for food systems and for activities on biodiversity and natural resources. So here we are working across silos, if you want, and with other colleagues in other parts of the Commission, because both agroecology and organic farming are seen as cross-cutting or system thinking approaches that need to go beyond one single intervention area. This is just an illustration quickly about the let's say the cluster 6 cross-cutting expected impacts that have been defined in parallel with the definition of the strategic plan. I'm not going to enter into too many technicalities, but just to say that these cross-cutting expected impacts are let's say orienting the definition of destinations under which the work program is being divided. So it's really mirroring the cross-cutting expected impacts that are about climate neutrality and adaptation to climate change, about biodiversity, about sustainable and circular management and use of natural resources, about sustainable primary production, about inclusive development of vibrant rural areas, and about also governance models enabling sustainability. So these are mirror in the destinations under which the work program is being structured. As you can see here, an illustration of how the destinations are matching, if you want, the priorities identified in the European Green Deal, and you can see that we are quite well geared towards supporting the achievements of the Green Deal, and we are trying, of course, in this sense, to prioritize and to put the emphasis and the efforts in those areas where we believe we can make a real difference on the ground. Research in agroecology and organic farming, I think, are among those areas, and not only relevant for the farm to fork strategy, but I would also emphasize Destination 1, protecting nature, Destination 5, climate pact and climate law, and also others. This is important to be reminded. In terms of concretely how agroecology and organic are featuring in more, let's say, more official documents, as I said at the beginning, I cannot unfortunately enter into giving you any details of what is currently in the draft of the work program. This is being discussed with the member states, so we cannot disclose that information. But already, of course, in designing those research and innovation activities, we follow, of course, what was already identified in the orientations document towards the first strategic plan of Horizon Europe. This is a document that was prepared already, was finalized at the end of last year, and it was the result of an intensive co-creation process internally within the Commission, but also, I should say, with all of you, with all the stakeholders, and all your inputs were taken into consideration in preparing these and in identifying the priorities. In the screen, you can see a couple of places where the orientations document mentions the organic sector and agroecology. Of course, for agroecology, also the partnership is referred to, as it's going to be, in our view, an important instrument to support the upscaling of agroecological approaches, and including also organic farming, of course, and agroforestry. We shouldn't forget that. So in this process, we are, of course, identifying, in preparing the work program, identifying the key priorities for research and innovation. There are many, of course, as you know, but because its challenges for our food and farming sectors are big, are many, are numerous. And we have to really try to do our best to cater for all of them with the budget that we have available. You have some of them on the screen, and others, of course, here, and you see organic farming and agroecology are among those. But there are many others, as you can see. In terms of where we are in Horizon Europe and the preparation for the first program for Horizon Europe, the orientations document is serving as the guidance to define the strategic plan, which is going to cover from 2021 to 2024. And this is being the basis for defining, among others, the multi-annual work programs and calls, so really the first work program under preparation, and also the identification of European partnerships and missions, which are two kind of novel instruments under Horizon Europe, also very important to consider in this context. As I say, we have, besides the kind of, we could say, normal calls under the work program, so the normal research projects, and in Horizon Europe, there is a new approach to particularly partnerships. Partnerships are going to be, in a way, upscaled, and are going to be really large initiatives, bringing together, avoiding as much as possible the working in silos and the multiplication of several partnerships that may have perhaps sometimes overlaps in activities. So the objective is really to have big initiatives on targeted themes that have already been pre-identified. The main, the ones that you can see illustrated in the slide are those that are relevant for Cluster 6 of Horizon Europe. I'm highlighting the one on agroecology. Living labs and research infrastructures have, of course, it's obviously the most relevant for you, but there are also others on the agricultural sector, agriculture of data, animals health and welfare, and others touching also some aspects like food systems, also relevant for you, I believe. Blue economy is a bit better because this is more about fisheries, but still also, why not? Water, circular bio-based sector, and etc. And biodiversity, I don't know if it's there, yeah, but it's also very important. In terms of the agroecology partnership, very quickly, because I believe most of you already know quite a lot about it. We were very happy to have all of you involved in the webinars that we prepared at the beginning of earlier this year to prepare this, to start preparing this partnership, and we really appreciated the inputs that we got from IFOAM, from FIBUL, from TPO Organics in the process. We're still there. So what is the objective of this partnership? So what we want to achieve with it is really accelerating the transition towards agroecology, towards sustainable climate and ecosystem-friendly farming practices, with a focus really on agroecology and also including organic farming. And the way we want to do this is really to, as I think Emil was mentioning this a bit at the beginning, that change, or this is also what we believe, the change is really urgent. We need to accelerate this transition, and we need to find perhaps new innovative models or ways to help or to work in collaboration, not to help farmers, but really more to work in collaboration with farmers to accelerate this uptake of practices, design together, find solutions to the problems on the ground in the specific places where they happen. And this is where we believe that living labs can provide a key contribution. This is also the reason why we believe the agroecology and living lab have common elements, or that we think they can fit together very nicely. Adapted to local ecosystems is place-based. Agroecology is clearly place-based. And living labs, at least for what we have seen in other sectors, are also place-based. So this is already an important element that we can try to find synergies and see how they can really support the upscaling of these practices in a specific context, involving actors at territorial level to achieve large-scale impact, of course. Social and behavioral dimensions, I think this is very important. We are not talking here only about diminishing inputs and yields, and as Emil was mentioning already at the beginning, we are also looking into the possibilities to go really beyond. It is about the holistic approach. It is about changing drastically the way we produce food, and this entails not only what farmers do, but also what other actors along the chain, and also not least researchers can help there, and advisors, of course. So it's really a systems approach, and we believe that the living lab approach can be very helpful in that. We are proposing a partnership because, contrary to what normal research projects can perhaps do, a partnership can ensure the necessary long-term impact and continuation of activities on the ground. Unfortunately, research projects, classical research projects, after 4 or 5 years, when funding is over, activities stop, and sometimes activities continue on the ground, and projects are useful to create to stimulate the innovation ecosystem and already create some interesting initiatives on the ground that can continue later on. But we need to have this at a large scale, and for this we really believe that the member states need to be involved. Not only the member states, let's say at the national level, or ministries at the national level, or funders at the national level, but also the regional authorities. In the case of agroecology, I think it's quite justified because, again, we are saying that it's place-based. So the role of regions in this is important, and we are also exploring this in the context of the partnership. So what would the partnership do? Quickly, the objectives are really to strengthen the agroecology research and innovation ecosystem in Europe, to improve farmers' knowledge on implementation of agroecology and its benefits, to improve the sharing of knowledge and experience across regions and countries. This is very important in terms of what we want to achieve, is really creating a network of living labs in Europe. And we believe that this is going to be a key instrument that it's going to facilitate also this sharing of knowledge, besides what can be done in the living labs themselves and in terms of also fostering research, etc. It's also about sharing experiences very much. In terms of activities, set up a common framework for methods, protocols, and data management to create those spaces for long-term, site-specific, and real-life experimentation and innovation, and create a network of these spaces and knowledge-sharing mechanisms. So where we are in the process, again, I thank you for your involvement, because it was, again, as I said at the beginning, very, very interesting webinars that where we had the opportunity to exchange with all of you, also with the member states, with other actors such as industry, in starting co-creating really this partnership in practice, because we really believe that it has to be co-created. We need to share our views. In particular, in this case of this partnership, we have involved quite, I would say, complex concepts such as agroecology, for which, as you know, there is no widely agreed definition. Okay, there are the 10 elements of FAO. There are other organizations working on trying to provide kind of definitions or orientations where agroecology is, but there is no perhaps common understanding, if you want, in Europe about the term of agroecology. In terms of living labs, is similar. There are living labs in some areas that are quite successful, for instance, in the digital world, but we need to come to an understanding of what agroecology living labs are really. What are the criteria? What do we mean by agroecology? What are the boundaries of it, etc. So this is a process that we started already in these webinars in May, June. Later on, in June, we organized another one where we started already to discuss together the vision, the ambition, and the objectives. So really, what do we want to achieve together with this partnership? And this was really a very useful input for us in moving the preparation of the partnership forward. In the screen, you can see a little bit in very broad lines what is going to be the process, or what is really the process, and what we are doing to get there. So the partnership co-creation is happening from now until 2022, more or less. It will be roughly 2 years that we will have to put together the partnership proposal. The call is going to put in the work program of Horizon Europe in 2023. The partnership would normally start in 2024, perhaps 2023, depending when the call is published in the work program. But most probably, I believe, will be 2024. In terms of what we are doing in fostering or preparing this, we have 2 Horizon 2020 projects, 2 coordination and support actions already, and agroecology for EU, AE for EU. These are really starting already to work really to prepare the ground for the partnership and preparing the community to start. We also plan to pilot the network of living labs. It's going to be a key contribution, I believe, in preparing the partnership. Of course, we will also have the key contribution of the Standing Committee on Agricultural Research, the SCAR. I would like to inform you that we are in the process of setting up a SCAR working group on agroecology, really to respond to the needs that we have in terms of what are the research and innovation priorities on agroecology? Where we should put the priority? How member states see this? The key value added of SCAR is really that they represent the member states, and I believe this is very important in the process. Of course, they should be involved from the beginning. We also have the national contact points that were already identified by member states to prepare for the partnership, and also there we are ensuring that there is coordination and see the linkages with what can happen at the national level compared to how the process happened at the European level. And also in preparing for a first identification of interesting initiatives that we could start paying attention to, or that we can think of analyzing in terms of identifying what are the criteria that we would like to see in these agroecology living labs. There is an ongoing. We have launched already at the end of October a pre-screening of agroecology living labs and research infrastructures in the form of an EU survey. And I thank you again for this, because the sector, you have been quite involved in preparing and helping us put in the right questions and the nice, the targeted questions that we would like to ask participants there. I hope some of you have already had the chance to have a look at it. I provide the link at the end of the presentation. It is very important for us to have a good overview of what could be interesting initiatives there. I should say that this survey is just a pre-screening, so it means that it's aimed at the first identification of interesting initiatives. The 2 CSAs, coordination and support actions that I mentioned earlier on, they are going to use that information, the result of those inputs, to undertake a more detailed mapping exercise in the first months of 2021. Concerning other new instruments, relevant new instruments in Horizon Europe, of course, we also have the missions here. I'm not going to enter into detail because it has already been mentioned quite thoroughly by the previous speaker, and it's also going to be the objective of the policy debate. But of course, we shouldn't forget that missions are the mission, especially the soil health and food mission, is going to be another possible instrument to support research in agroecology and organic farming. And here you see that the proposed mission already identifies the possibility, the opportunity to promote solutions based on the enhanced use of agroecological principles and organic agricultural practices that have shown evidence and important evidence on soil health. The last slide is very quickly just to show that we are, of course, research and innovation is going to be a key instrument, no doubt, in fostering this necessary uptake of agroecological and organic farming practices, but it's not the only one. We will continue under Horizon Europe. Of course, very important to remember that we will continue to have multi-actor projects. It is going to be perhaps even increased compared to Horizon 2020. We believe this is an important means to ensure that the end users, farmers, fishers, foresters, are really involved in research in a genuine manner. This is going to be continued, of course. We also have the EIP Agri that you know, I believe. This is going to be boosted in the future. The operational groups, the focus groups are going to be going to continue to have an important role in the knowledge exchange, in bringing the research results to the ground. And of course, in the case of agroecology, the AP Agri already identified agroecology as the theme of the Agri Innovation Summit last year in France. I believe most of you perhaps, were at this summit, and I think it was really good to see that the summit confirmed that it was important to move European agriculture towards more sustainable farming practices inspired by agroecology. And also, I think it was also good to see or to come to the conclusion that there are huge or big research needs in agroecology. There are many things that need to be still discovered, also because it's a very place-based approach. So it will really depend on where these things are happening that we can find solutions to the given problem. And of course, the CAP is going to be an important instrument that we said at the beginning, and last but not least, the Organic Action Plan. So if all these elements come nicely together, I think we are going to have a very nice future for agroecology and organic farming in Europe. To conclude, I hope I am still on time. I would like to give a few key messages very quickly because I think I'm already over time. Really to remind, the Horizon Europe is going to be a key enabler of the European Green Deal and its key strategies for the farming and food sector. Also, that to remind that we have several challenges to cater for our farming and food sectors, and there are, of course, several priorities for action. Organic and agroecology are among those. Research and innovation under Horizon Europe includes different instruments, different possibilities. So we will have the normal calls under the work plan, but we will also have the partnerships and the missions. We are currently preparing, as I mentioned earlier, the first work program of Horizon Europe. This is going to cover the first 2 years only, 21, 22, but we will have, of course, more to come in the run-up to 2027. So we are not doing everything in the first 2 years. We are trying to have some distribution also with the rest of the years that are still to come. And as I said at the last slide, beyond research and innovation, several instruments are going to support the uptake of organic and agroecology. So we should see this in a holistic perspective. And with this, I give you a little bit of information if you are interested in having a look at the what we have in Horizon Europe and also the agroecology partnership, the webinars that I mentioned, and the first screening of agroecology living labs that I really encourage you to have a look at and provide your contribution if you know of some interesting initiatives. So I think I finished. I'm sorry for going a little bit over time.
Thanks a lot, Susanna. There have come a couple of questions to the chat, including one on the share of organic or the share of research organic food and farming in Horizon Europe, stating that this should be 25% according to the target of organic farmland. I propose to keep this question and also other questions for the policy debate that we will have later on, but I would like to pick one question that's more about the timing. So you said that member states are still negotiating on the budget of the MFF, the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, and Horizon Europe. When do you think this will be finalized? And another question, because this is the topic of today, is the mission and the SOL mission. Will there be a specific call for this SOL mission in the work program?
Okay, thank you. So you're asking me two things of which I have no control. For the budget, I don't know really when we will have this information. We hope it's going to be soon because, of course, we need to know this before the work program is published. But I don't know because it doesn't really depend on us that we have this agreement. We hope that the level of budget will keep to the challenge, keep up to the challenge. But we don't know. We really don't know this. And in terms of the soil mission, I'm not directly involved in the preparation of the soil mission. This will have to be seen, I think, in the coming months. I'm afraid I'm not able to answer you this, but perhaps it is a question for the next policy debate that is going to be about the mission. I would perhaps advise you to consider it for then.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time, Susanna. As we are a little bit over time, I propose that we start the policy debate.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Organic Innovation Days 2020. I'm Eduardo Cuoco and I will be your moderator for the next hour. I will be moderating a policy debate on Horizon Europe and the mission. Let me introduce a bit the topic. I mean, as you know, we are in a very special time, not only because of the pandemic crisis we are all living, but also because it's time now for Europe and for the entire world population to act towards the climate crisis. The European Commission published last December the European Green Deal, the macroeconomic policy of the Union for the next decade, a macroeconomic policy that wants to reach net emission by 2050. In her communication, the President of the Commission outlined an important role for the organic food and farming sector. Important role also reflected in the biodiversity strategy and the farm to fork strategy. I mean, Susanna explained it very well in her presentation. Both strategies, in fact, set an ambitious target of 25% organic land by 2030. So in this session today, I would like to explore with the speakers how Horizon Europe and these tools, such as the mission and the partnership, can support the transition towards a more sustainable food system and how it will help in matching the organic target in the, indicated in the strategies. So today with me, we have a very relevant speaker. The first one is Nathalie Suas van de Weijer. She's the Director for Quality Research and Innovation in DG Agri. Welcome, Nathalie.
Good morning, Eduardo, and good morning, the participant.
Thank you. Then we have Hans-Jörg Lussayer, Scientific Officer of DG Research and Innovation. Hi, Hans-Jörg.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning, Eduardo. Good morning to everyone.
Hi, Ansior. Nice to see you. Then we have Alfred Grant. Alfred is a farmer, an organic farmer. He has a company called Vermigrant, and he's also part of the mission board for soil health and food. Hi, Alfred.
Hello, everyone from Austria. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And then we have Mute Shimps from Friends of the Earth, and she's also a member of the TPO Organic Steering Committee. Hi, Mute.
Welcome, everybody.
Hi, Mute. Nice to see you. So, for all of you, we want to make this session interactive. So I will make a first round of questions to the speakers, but I invite you to already post your question on the chat, so that the second part of the debate can be with your question and not only with mine. And I will now start with a round of questions for each of the speakers. So the first question will be for Natalie. Natalie, I mean, we are aiming at for at least 75% of all soils in the EU to be healthy for food, for people and nature, and for climate by 2030. And this is a bit the macro objective of the mission for soil and health and food, which is one of the 5 missions that have been launched under Horizon Europe. I mean, we believe that this mission will be crucial for the success of the Green Deal. And we know that there is evidence for positive effect of organic practices in soil health. So my question for you, Natalie, is how will the mission leverage the potential of organic farming and agroecology to protect and restore European soil and their essential function? And it would be nice if you can give the perspective from food supply to carbon sequestration, for example. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eduardo, and thank you for your interest in the missions in general, which is considered as a new tool for Horizon Europe. But I would like to start with a word of caution. Let me precise that the mission has not been approved now yet by the Commission. We have received in September during the NI days the board recommendation for missions called Caring for Soil is Caring for Life. And the mission report has been very well received by the College of Commissioners responsible for research. And we are now entering in a preparatory phase to work on the details for the implementation of such a mission. And the Commission will take the final decision in 2021 for the full deployment of the missions. It is for the 5 missions. So now it's true that the mission board, soil health and food, and Alfred is part of this mission board, and he will give you later on additional information, has proposed a highly ambitious goal, and the goal corresponds to doubling by 2030 the rate of healthy soil in Europe across all types of land. And as you mentioned, it fits very well with the Green Deal priorities. Now, today we will discuss a little bit more the agriculture part of this mission, but the idea is to target all soils. So not only agriculture, but also in forest, also in urban soils and the nature area. But let's focus on agriculture for today. So to reach the objectives and the corresponding targets, the missions will act at 4 levels, what we call the building blocks. And the first one is, of course, research innovation, but what will be the important part of this mission is the testing and the deployment of solutions through what we call living labs and lighthouses. The third part will be soil monitoring. And the fourth one, it's more linked to education, communication, and citizen engagement. That is an important elements of the mission. But as you can see, the building blocks are clearly interlinked. So, as I said, the living labs and lighthouse will be the main tools for the mission implementation at regional and local level. And that will mean that it will bring together the researchers, the land managers, the business, and the society at large to identify research innovation gaps, co-create knowledge, test solutions, and promote their uptake in practice. So what we want to do, the idea is to create communities from various sectors and that works together and delivers solutions tailored to the local context. And that is, I think, really important. But we are not starting from scratch, of course. When we are talking about communities, we can refer to the multi-actor approach for Horizon 2020, and of course also the European Innovation Partnership for Agri, EIP Agri, which create a certain number of operational groups under the rural development. And in the new CAP, we have proposed to reinforce this EIP tools. So this approach, this general approach, is widely applied in agroecology and, of course, in organic farming. So for you, it's not new. The reports presented by the mission board highlight the importance of living labs and lighthouses to showcase good examples. And so the good examples can come from the practice from agroecology and from the organic sector. So I think the organic sector is very well prepared to join the mission activities, because you have a very good practice in soil management. You are used to work in a system approach, and you are testing new ways regularly based on knowledge exchange. So I think I'm sure that the mission will help to further improve also practice in the organic sector, for example, in addressing knowledge gaps, but also to have also a better soil monitoring. So we have the possibility to have this exchange, but I think the mission will also help the organic sector to achieve the famous 25% target you are mentioning, which is foreseen in the farm to fork and the biodiversity strategies, because if you have more and more healthy soils, of course, that will help for also conversion their organic farming. So that's it's a win-win situation. So what is important, it's to raise one of the objectives is to raise the awareness of the importance of soil, not only for the agriculture sector, but also for all citizens. That's the reason we put really a great importance on citizen engagement. And you can see now we can follow a certain number of video at national level linked to the importance of soil, what we have to do, what are the challenges, and that is. So to conclude, I think the organic sector will be a strong partner for this mission. Again, if we can start with the mission, but I cross the finger. I think we will do all what can be done to launch this mission. But I think now we will involve you also in the preparatory phase, and that is the first step in our timeline. Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you very much for a very comprehensive answer. And please stay with us, because I will come back to you later on with the other question and the question from the audience. Now I would like to bring on screen Alfred. Hi, Alfred. Hi again. Welcome to our event. You are an organic farmer. You are an entrepreneur. You are very active in research and innovation, and you are also a member of the mission board for soil health and food. And let me say, your farm is also one of the global, part of the global network of Lighthouse Farm. So as you are so polyhedric, I have polyhedric question for you, a cluster of questions. So first of all, I would like to know if you can tell us more about what innovative practices you are already applying in your farm to boost the health of your soils. And then I would like to know, what are your expectations? What should be achieved by the mission for soil health, which you are a member of? And then, as you are also an ambassador of the EIP Agri, maybe you could tell us what could motivate other farmers to join the mission to make our soil healthier and our food system more sustainable. Thank you, Alfred. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Eduardo, for giving me the opportunity to tell a little bit about what we do. on a farm level here in Austria, but also at the mission board and what we propose. So I have quite a bit of research connection, and therefore we always do a lot of research on our farm. So quite for the past 10 years, we already cooperated with scientists and also NGOs and other stakeholders. So what we are implementing now is when we already, my parents started to reduce plowing, and so we stopped plowing the soil 25 years ago or even earlier. In 2006, we changed to organic agriculture, which was a big step in increasing soil health. But then we even more reduced tillage and in case of the intensity of tillage, but also tillage depth. So now we are working very shallow, 3 to 4 centimeter only, as much as possible. Only once in a crop rotation we go a little bit deeper, like 10 centimeter or 15. We reduced tire pressure quite significantly. So we're working with 0.6 bar in our tires on the tractor. We are doing trials in the roller crimper organic no-till method, which is a beautiful method for increasing soil health. We do mixed seeds, undersowing. We do perform crop rotation for 8-9 years. We do use cover crops. We do trials in cut and carry, so taking, for example, lucerne from one field, bringing it to the other field and fertilizing the other fields and feeding the earthworms at the same time. We do compost. We use vermicompost as a seed treatment for our cereals, for example. We are doing research in agroforestry, flower strips, and market gardening. So all of these methods are really important, I think, to increase soil health. But what we really do is what we try to achieve. We try to achieve even more. So we try to multiplicate what we do. So we established a research farm, and research is not enough. So we do research and demonstration, and this is something that is really important. We have a focus in soil health, agroforestry, and market gardening on our farm. So we are doing the research not ourselves, but we are working with scientists. We are working with stakeholders to work and to increase our impact on soil health, and not only on our farm, but also on other farms. So this is what we do on the farm ourselves. But what is about the mission board? So your second question, what do we want to achieve with the mission? And there is the slogan. The mission is called "Caring for soil is caring for life," and this is very much what we intend to do. We see the soil as the most important resource, even contributing to the other 4 missions. Soil is essential for us, for our work, and I don't have to explain it in here. But this is what we want to achieve, is to have a systemic approach. So to see more than only soil. And what we want to motivate all stakeholders which are working on soil, so from farmers, scientists, politicians, but also we want to raise awareness on a citizen level. So this is really important for us, because consumers can decide with their choice which food they buy, which type of production they would support with their money. So what could other farmers motivate to join the mission? And this is really important for us. And I think the mission board proposal is really outstanding in that approach, because we see the mission not research driven, but we want to see the cooperation between farmers and scientists. And what we proposed are to have 1,000 to 2,000 lighthouse farms and living labs established all over Europe, where farmers, where landowners, land managers, foresters, for example, can cooperate with science on one side to establish research where it's still needed and innovation, but also to help implement already known practices in practice and demonstrate for consumers, for citizens. So this is really an important thing. And what I see on a farmer's level when I talk to colleagues, then we see that we have huge interest in these lighthouse farms. So I get a lot of requests, and how can I be a lighthouse farm? How can I have established a living lab on my own farm? So we can see that farmers are super interested, and I think it's a very nice approach, and it's a huge step forward what the mission proposed, to have that strong cooperation between practice and science.
Thank you, Alfred. It's indeed a very good idea to co-create and work together towards new innovations. So please stay with us, because there will be for sure questions for you. I see already some is coming up on the chat. So I would like to move to Hans-Jörg. Hello, Hans-Jörg. Hi. Welcome again to our Organic Innovation Days. So we can bring Hans-Jörg on the screen. Hello. Hi, Hans. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today. And we had a speaker in the session before, Susanna from DG Agri, which told a few words about the partnership on agroecology. But actually, there is another partnership which sounds very interesting, the one on safe and sustainable food system, for which DG Research and Innovation is in charge of. And we also learned from Susanna that partnership are already a very important tool of Horizon Europe. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about the partnership on safe and sustainable food system, and also if you can also say a few words about what could be the role of organic food and farming into this partnership. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, and thank you for the organizers to invite us to the Organic Innovation Days. It was a great example given by Alfred what it could mean to bring, let's say, a research and innovation idea such as the soil mission to practice. And as I remember, many of the examples actually which received the Organic Innovation Prize were in the startup phase. So great examples of using ICT tools and processes. And just as a preliminary remark, I would wish actually that our instruments are more flexible actually to support such innovation ideas, accompany them. But actually in some of our projects, we have foreseen, let's say, elements which could lead to work packages, which could actually allow projects to create such a space, a kind of innovation accelerator space. And I would hope actually if projects coming in spot this opportunity, that they use such work packages, so that innovation ideas like those actually which receive the Organic Innovation Prize can also benefit from some accompanying measures, maybe scaling up through projects. But now to your question. Actually, as Susanna already outlined a few elements of the partnerships, just to add that we are in a way moving from the ERANET landscape to the partnership landscape. ERANETs may still continue, but without commission funding. And many of the ERANETs are so mature that member state partners are actually keen to continue working together, aligning their research programs. For the partnerships, actually, our challenge is to design a partnership landscape which makes sense at the end. So we have the challenge actually in designing 3 partnerships in our cluster to be rolled out in 2023, food systems, agroecology, and animal health. And when they start in 2023, it should make sense. So, and this is the challenge actually to create interfaces and also not to work in silos, but working together. For the food system partnership, we had 2 preparatory workshops, one in September 2019 and the last one in October 2020. The convening platform is the SCAR Strategic Working Group Food Systems. So they are organizing the workshops. They called in the last workshop on 1st of October to members to nominate drafters, so to nominate colleagues who are ready to take the pen and first of all start drafting a narrative which could cover, let's say, take inspiration from the workshops. And actually there was overwhelming response. So 46 nominations were received, far too much to have only one drafter group. So we decided to split it into 4 drafter groups who until 21st of January will develop competing narratives. Narratives in the form of a platform, a welcoming partnership platform for co-funders, and looking through the draft names, there are quite a few coming from the organic sector. And I hope the organic sector from, let's say, processing is and engaging with citizens initiatives is visible in the narratives which we then will receive on 21st of September. But also that is not the end of the day, because we have more or less the whole year in 2021 to come forward with further drafting the food system partnership. Back to you, Eduardo.
Thank you very much, Hans-Jörg, for your comprehensive answer. And stay with us. We will come back to you. And now we bring on the screen Mute. Hi, Mute.
Hi, Eduardo.
Hi, nice to see you, and thanks for being with us. I mean, you work as a food campaigner and at Friends of the Earth Europe, and you are part of the steering committee of the European technology platform TPO Organics. But as Friends of the Earth Europe, you made a manifesto for citizens that included in your report that city engagement is vital, not only for the acceptance, but to ensure ownership of citizens, for measures to be taken to stimulate a change in the mindset of consumers and producers, and also to tap and create new ideas. So I was reading out from your report. Can you tell us a little bit more? What is needed to ensure that citizens really engage in the mission for soil, as also Alfred was saying? And when can we call this a success? What are the elements that we could have to make sure that this mission can be seen as a success? Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Eduardo. When I was reading the mission statement for Horizon Europe for the relevant soil health pillar, it's a real pleasure to read it. It has a sharp assessment on the problems for soil health. It defines clear tools, and it's also really has this button-up approach that we like as Friends of the Earth Europe, how citizens can be involved and how can we have a real change in Europe's research and innovation policy. But I think the challenge for us is how do we turn this into practice, because writing a good paper, thanks to Emil and thanks to the others and thanks to Alfred, who were part of a board of a mission statement. But I think what lies now before us is really how can we turn this into practice? And as we have heard in the chat or read in the chat before, the question is how do we see participatory research happening? And quite often food producers or consumers are seen as end users of new developments, of new technology, of innovation. And I think if you want to change this, we really should start and involve local food producers, local communities already in the problem definition, because the problem definition will set then the research question and then the design of an actual research project. And in a previous job where I worked for development NGO, it was very clear that people on the ground sometimes have a very other view what their real problem is than people in universities or researchers or advisors think. So for us, it's very clear to bring in the local context in the research and the social context and the environmental context, which is so different all over Europe, especially if you talk about soil. To give you one concrete example, not a classical organic farming one, Digital farming is now often seen as a very innovative and very efficient way how we can have more sustainable food production. And if we want to reduce pesticide use, we can think about weeding robots. So we can think about a high-tech weeding robot that is using GPS, that is using sensors, all kind of cameras to define it, and it's developed normally by a bigger corporation. But what does it mean for the farmers? The farmers can't repair it themselves. It's a high investment to buy it, and they are not involved in the design of a weeding robot. But we also have from the organic sector this low-tech weeding robots, where were developed to support organic farmers in their vegetable productions, to make it less work, to have a good harvest. And these weeding robots are low-tech, super innovative, because they can be adapted to the local needs, they can be improved, they can be repaired by the farmers themselves. So these questions of governance in technology development and in research for us is a really crucial one. And you can even go further. If I would define a problem, but I'm not a farmer, I would say what would be really needed is that we need technologies that allows food producers to grow 20 to 100 different crops on one field, to sow them, to foster them, to harvest them. And for this, we need completely other technologies. And this is, for me, for example, would be really long-term looking. But you also asked me what would be the success factors. And I quote from this wisdom of a crowd, I mean, most scientists and most citizens have understand that the current way of industrial farming is leading us to an ecological collapse, is increasing the climate crisis, and also does not deliver actually the healthy food for all. So if we want to change this, I would suggest 3 indicators. The first one would be we want to have a reduction of pesticide use by 50% by 2030, as it was defined in the farm to fork strategy. And this would be a good indicator to see how much we move also more mainstream farming to a pesticide-free farming and bring them closer to organic farming and bring them closer to agroecology. The second indicator would be that we actually also have a justice dimension in it, that all citizens in Europe have access to healthy and adequate food, ideally also locally produced. And the third one, closer to the topic of this conversation, is that we want to have 25% of all farming be agroecology organic, and not only arable land. We also want to have an animal sector included. And FO would love to have a more relocalized retail sector also developed in the next 10 years. And we also want to emphasize that if we want to achieve this, we also need to have more budget allocated for organic and agroecology research in Horizon Europe. Because at the moment, if we want to achieve a game of 25% organic land under the farm to fork strategy, we also need to have more research money to achieve this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mute. And I saw that it was one of the comments in the chat in the session before that indeed 25% organic land should correspond to 25% organic budget invest into organic research. And I would like to underline that when you invest money into research and innovation for organic farming, it's actually an investment for the overall food and farming sector, because our organic solution can be used by conventional farmers as well. So it's indeed a win-win if you invest in organic research. But I have to also go back to some questions that I received in the chat. So I would like to bring all the speakers back on the screen if possible. And the first 2 questions are for the colleagues from the European Commission. In particular, I think there is a question, Natalie, for you about the living labs, and if you have already set up criteria how to define a living lab, or what could be this criteria. Maybe this is a question for you, but maybe there is also a reflection from Alfred on that. So let's see. Please, Natalie, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo. For living labs, as you know, there is no common definition for living labs as such. It's the idea is to have these communities on the local ground and to put together so farmers, researchers, and other stakeholders linked to the in this case to the soil management, but also the advisor and all the things. So for the question was linked to, if we have criteria for farm, I think I will let the floor to Alfred, because he is a lighthouse and perhaps also have this link with Living Labs. We have the experience with EIP Agri, but I'm not sure that I have the clear definition for that. So Alfred.
Thank you, Natalia. Alfred, are you a living lab or just a lighthouse farm? What's the difference? What are the criteria?
We are a living lab and a lighthouse farm.
Okay.
Fortunately, lighthouse farms, per definition, the mission board, and this has to be worked out, as Natalie already explained in detail in the coming months. But lighthouse farms are more for implementing research results that are already there and demonstrating it to farmers, but also to consumers or to citizens. Living labs have a main focus on research. So they are trying new innovative ideas, cooperating with science, with the industry, with NGOs on let's call it even unusual ideas or crazy ideas, how we can increase soil health, how we can make the soil healthy again. And then also demonstrate for farmers, for implementation, but also for citizens. So the main difference is lighthouse farms are more for demonstration, and living labs are for research and demonstration. And they should also work together, a group of lighthouses in a region. And yeah, this is more or less in short.
So I guess we will need a very strong connection of living labs with operational groups of the EIP Agri, for example, to make sure that all these elements can work together.
Yeah, if you think about it, EIP Agri, and I'm super happy to hear that EIP Agri will have more power in the future, because it's a really successful initiative from DG Agri. And if you talk to farmers in Austria, they are super happy with what we can do with operational groups, for example. And these are already kind of lighthouses or living labs, because they are working together in groups with the multi-stakeholder approach from Horizon 2020, with researchers, with NGOs, with the industry, to get on a problem and find a solution. And this will be much stronger at the mission board for soil health and food.
Thank you, Alfred. And I have another question from the participants, and it's about co-creation. I mean, the comment is co-creation is nice, but also means that people should be involved into the process from the beginning. And the question is actually about the SCAR working group, because Susanna in her presentation mentioned the SCAR working group for agroecology, and Hans-Jörg, in your presentation, you mentioned the SCAR food system working group. So is there space for farmer organization, processor organization like TPO Organics to sit into this SCAR working group and cooperate with the SCAR member?
Thank you for the question, Eduardo. Actually, in the workshop on the 1st of October, we called on the participants to come forward with name for drafters. But I have to say the starting point of such a partnership is the co-funding instrument, so that participants pool or combine their national funding schemes, for example, within a co-fund instrument in the partnership. So first of all, we have to look at co-funding partners, and in the past, these had been corresponding programs in member states. But looking at the names of the drafters, many of them have relations to, I mentioned already, the organic sector, but also farmer groups. Some also to citizen initiatives. For example, one is from ICLEI, which is working with sustainable cities. Also the Milan Food Pact actually sent a representative. So the call was actually in the workshop to all participants in principle. And the workshops are actually the points of time where we interact with citizens, with initiatives, and with farmers, more broader speaking. while the SCAR groups, the SCAR collaborative working groups, strategic working groups, are based on member state delegates complemented by experts. Again, this expert option opens for some member states to base expertise from colleagues who are coming also from one of the sectors, from the farming sector, from the organic sector, or from other expertise backgrounds. But then they have to be nominated by a member state or be part of the delegation.
Thank you, Hans-Jörg. And I don't know if Natalie wants to add anything about the SCAR.
Yes,
please.
but concerning just what Hans-Jörg said, it's first the member state, but also with the expert. But what is important, it's all the event organized, and so this workshop, we have the same for agroecology. We start quite earlier to see the interest for this agroecology partnership, but it's also with the stakeholders, and this co-creation is there. It's officially, it's true that it is the SCAR, it's more a committee for with the member state, but also with the expert. And we cannot work only between the institution and the member state. We need to have this co-creation with the stakeholders, because they have the knowledge out there, and to see what is missing, what we have to put in place for the future, and taking also into account what is already on the table. So yes, fully right that what we are doing, we try to involve as much as possible the stakeholders.
Thank you, Natalie. And I'm wondering if there are more questions from the audience. In the meantime, I would like to ask you another question, Natalie, because I mean, we talked about innovative solution that can be promoted by Horizon Europe, the mission, or by the partnership. But then we need to make sure that these innovative solutions are being taken up by the final actors. So I would like to ask you, how is the Commission, DG Agri in particular, working on education and training? How can we ensure that education and training will be provided to uptake innovative solution? And what role EU policy can play in that? And especially my mind goes to the common agriculture policy and the strategic plans that we will need to be developed in the different member states. Maybe Natalie, you can tell us a few words about that.
Yeah, of course. No, first of all, perhaps to come back to the mission, we have a specific objective on soil literacy. With the target referring to school, to training, to also to advisor. But of course, that is clearly a point where the synergies with the common agriculture policy is important, because as we said, mission, it's not only research innovation, it's much more than that, and it's the clearly a link with the other EU policies. And so in the CAP as it exists now, but in the future CAP post 2020, one important element will be the agriculture knowledge innovation system, the famous AKIS. Because without this possibility to have this transfer of knowledge, to have the possibility to advise the farmer, it's impossible to achieve all these objectives. So that will be a very important point for the strategic plans, which are under preparation by the member state, to explain exactly where they are with, because it's not new. We had already advisory services in the existing CAP, and we have the EIP Agri. We have already mentioned that is also an element. But for the member state, it's important to put in the strategic plan what they will put in place to have an improved system, to have this possibility to make this link clearly between the knowledge from one side and how to implement this and to have this education. So to come back to the soil, it's important that there is this soil awareness, not only for the farmers, but also for the citizens. So we need to improve the knowledge in soil, also at school, also to explain to our young generation what is the importance of soil. But so that will be clearly an element for the CAP. And but now we are waiting to see how the member states will put this in place. But we hope that they will take into account the past experience to improve. To as Alfred mentioned, EIP, it's a big success, but we hope that in the future that will be also more and more operational group, and we will be very careful at Commission level to see that the ECIS is well in place for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. And I see a lot of questions are coming up, so I will try to cluster them one after the other. But I mean, on the same line, on let's say education and training, one of the participants is asking about facilitators. Indeed, the role of facilitator, let's say advisor, who can really facilitate the work on living labs and Tata's farm, can be very important. Alfred, how do you see this qualification is quite rare? Do you think the mission can also help in, let's say, creating a new facilitator for having a better food system in Europe?
Yeah, I think this is quite a critical question, because what can we expect from living labs, from lighthouses? What can we expect from farmers which are innovative, working in their practice? And are they also facilitators, or do we have to train them to be facilitators, to multiply this and to act as a bridge between science and practice, act as a bridge between farming sectors and the consumer sectors? I think this is quite critical, because I see it on my own farm. So we have a research farm, we are a lighthouse farm from the Wageningen Global Lighthouse Farming Network. So we developed that 2 or 3 years ago. And what we see is that it's difficult to get all the positions. So I would rather see a small organization behind these living lab and lighthouse farms, because the risk is that the farmers will have to do multiple jobs. And the question is if they can do. So I think it's best to have the farmers work where they are best in, and get a small organization behind that is making the videos, for example, is organizing field trips and so on, so that the farmer doesn't have to do it himself. So I think the facilitator job, yeah, for some aspect, yes, but it is critical to support the lighthouses and the living labs there to make it a success.
Thank you, Alfred. And I would like to go to Mute now, because there was a question about policy. So my question for you would be, is this framework program, Horizon Europe, with the mission, the partnership, able to accelerate really the transition towards organic and agroecological farming system? And as follow-up, is the CAP fit enough for that to give support to what will be done by Horizon Europe?
I start with a question with CAP. I mean, as a lot of other NGOs, we were heavily disappointed about the current state of a final CAP negotiations. We would have expected much more. And if Commission Vice President Timmermans also raised concerns if the plan of member states and the proposals from the urban position of the European Parliament actually contribute to the European Green Deal objectives. So I think how we understand the CAP, and if there's not something heavily changed at national level in the strategic plans, we don't think the CAP will contribute to the necessary paradigm shift that we need for our way, how we use the land, how we can improve soil fertility, how we can cut emissions in the farming sector, and how we can protect biodiversity in a better way. I'm also time aware, so I don't want to talk for ages about one comment on the missions and on Horizon Europe. One thing I understood that there might be even a plan to have bigger projects than we have so far. And an old demand from TP Organic was always that in the specific calls, we should have something for smaller organizations that allow grassroots participation, that really allows also smaller organizations to contribute and to apply for the money. And especially now, if you want to have a more bottom-up approach, I think this is really important to be aware that various organizations cannot apply for research because they can't manage so big proposals, they can't manage so big budgets, and they also struggle with all the administration for this. So it's a plea from our side that for general grants of a commission, there should be a certain pillar for smaller projects that would allow really local initiatives, regional initiatives to apply for the money. And if you only have 10 million and bigger projects, this is just impossible for a lot of really interesting, really transitional projects to apply for. And I had one more point. And I think a criteria, if you want to go to transition, that every project proposal must include a real bottom-up approach. And if it's not the case, then I think the Commission should consider if this really helps us to achieve the necessary transition. And bottom-up, as I said, it's not a big greenwashing. It's not at one point you have a citizen outreach activity. It's really involving local actors in the research design, in the research question from the beginning. And then I think we can achieve it. But if we don't do this, if we don't have this really bottom-up approach included in the relevant research programs, I don't think we can do it. Go for it.
Thank you, Mute. Thank you very much for your reflections. And I received a few questions about agroecology. I mean, there is an overall fears that agroecology, being not defined by law, can be the entry door for people who can greenwash a bit the concept of sustainable food and farming system. I mean, some of the participants is commenting that agroecology is even being used, for example, for introducing GMO into farming systems and so on. So there is a general fear that not having agroecology protected by the law could be the entry door for greenwashing, while having organic farming well defined into the legislative framework of the European Union might be an added value, because it's clear what farmers can deliver under the organic scheme. So this would be my general final question for all of you. Do you see this risk of watering down the ambition of the Green Deal and Farm to Fork because of a terminology that is too broad and can lead to different interpretation? And how is, in case of the Commission, the institution working in order to make sure that the principle of agroecology will be respected into the work that will be carried on in the future months and days? So I don't know if someone wants to start. Maybe I see Alfred has the microphone open. Alfred, maybe as a farmer, you want to start with this?
Yeah, agroecology. I'm using agroecological methods, and I'm a big fan of that. I'm an organic farmer. I'm a big fan of that. And I see there are different levels of organic farming. So you have that level of the European Union regulation, and then we step up. In Austria, we have Be Austria as an organization who has much higher levels, and then we can get up on that. Nowadays, it's even more. We go into the regenerative approach. So we try not only to be sustainable, to sustain at the same level, but we have to go back. We have to bring our soil back to a healthy status. So we have to be regenerative. We are using agroecological methods, and we should multiply and level up that the quality of our work. I think this is really important, and the organic sector really has the benefit that there are regulations, so you have a certain level, and from there you can step up and increase. So this is my approach.
Thank you. I don't know, Hans-Jörg?
Yes, maybe. I think agroecology, there are many different concepts. So agroecology as a scientific concept, as a social movement. I think agroecology as a scientific concept has a lot of power. If you ideally can actually develop the field into mimicking nature, So if a pest is controlled by a beneficial insect, if a plant pathogen is actually controlled by microorganisms which are part of healthy soil, and deepening this understanding of interactions, I think this is the scientific power of agroecology. I think organic as a concept is so strong, I mean, in certification, that I see for the market not really, let's say, a danger, but certainly this is up to the organizations in the organic context to keep the organic concept relevant for consumer communication, and having agroecology more as a broader field where you develop new scientific understanding and where you test out all these other concepts like regenerative agriculture and other concepts. I think both concepts could live with each other. And we have sometimes made the experience, if you go towards a very strict approach of definition, it's more excluding others than helping, actually. Therefore, having a broader definition and then just looking forward to get work done, I think helps more. Back to you.
Thank you, Hans-Jörg. And then Nathalie.
Yes, no, but I agree with what Alfred explained. I must say we have no clear definition of agroecology, but for us, it's all these agroecological methods, and organic are, of course, a specific element of this broad family, with the regulation, with the certification, and also with the recognition by the consumer, because we have the logo at EU level for that. And so, but not all farmers have the possibility or want to go to be introduced in the organic communities, because there is strict rules to be applied. And if we want to achieve all the targets put in the Green Deals, and so in farm to fork and biodiversity, so linked to pesticide, linked to antimicrobial, it's good to have different steps. And if we have to go in the same direction, and so if it is not possible to start with the organic, you have always the possibility for farmer to apply agroecological methods without the thing. What we must be careful is at the end, if we are multiplying the logo, and for that, and the consumer risk to be misled. But that is to be carefully analyzed, and to be sure that it's well explained, and that there is no mixture between the different elements. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathalie. Very clear. Mute.
I studied organic agriculture, and I think I was working on an organic farm when the first organic regulation passed in the European institutions. For me, there's a big overlap, but there's also an inspiration, because for me, organic agriculture also did not start with a EU regulation. It was developed by farmers, it was developed by researchers to say, this is the direction that you want to go. And you had also a long transition period where it was defining objectives, where we want to go, and then very detailed rules. Whilst for me, agroecology, yes, it doesn't have a European or international one definition, but for me, it's an approach, and it can also be an inspiration, because some developments in the organic sector, going mainly for supermarkets, having close cooperation, there are some consumers and some citizens who see concerns on this. And for me, agroecology can then be also something which has this strong local approach, and this very strong social approach can also be a fruitful dialogue to remind in which direction we want to go together, where we go together, and where we might have sometimes slightly different priorities. And I think it's also an advantage that you don't have this legal definition, that it's a more living concept, because it also allows us to develop quicker and to learn from each other, and to see here is something really inspiring that we can think about how we can scale it up, what we can learn. Can it be also then at one point written as a rule for the organic farming sector? So I think for me, it's also strength that it's not so clearly defined. And I fully agree with Nathalie that in some regions, some farmers decided they don't want to go for full organic certification, but they still follow a lot of agroecology practices. And I know from I4MEU, this is hard to accept, but sometimes it is just like this. I mean, and for us, it's really an inspiration, and we are really pleased to see how much research is produced and how much evidence we have that we actually have much better solutions than industrial farming, and it delivers socially, economically, climate-wise, biodiversity-wise, and it's a real inspiration that we can achieve the necessary change.
Thank you, Mute. And I think it's very important that we bring as much farmer as possible towards more sustainable food system. Are they certified or not? So the ambition is to have a sustainable Europe by 2050, and the organic farming sector wants to contribute, but we want more and more farmers to get closer to organic and to become organic. So the more, the better in this case. And we are almost finishing. So before I give the final words to all of you, I would like to remind that for all the members of TP Organics, we will meet again at 2 o'clock for the stakeholder forum. So we will be back at 2 o'clock Central East European time for the stakeholder forum of TP Organics, member-only event. And then I would like also to give you already the date for the next Organic Innovation Days in 2021. It will be on the 30th of November and 1st of December. So save the date in your agenda, and hopefully this will be an event that will be physical, and we will be able to meet in person in 1 year from now. And then I would like to close. We have 2 minutes. So my question is a yes or no question, and it's about the 25% target. Are we going to meet in 10 years from now and Europe will be 25% organic? Alfred, yes or no?
Yes.
Good. Nathalie?
I will say yes, we'll do all we can do to achieve this target.
Great.
And to help the sector to achieve it. And with the action plan, I think that will be, important tools to achieve link with research innovation and all the other actions we can do.
Thank you, Nathalie. Hans-Jörg?
Yes, if we can broaden actually the uptake. There are front-running countries, and there are countries which still need, let's say, proper structures, proper elements. And if we can actually get those countries, those markets encouraged, getting also upfront, then yes.
Thank you, Hans-Jörg. Ute?
Yes, definitely we can achieve this, especially with farmers like Alfred and with more lighthouses and more living labs and more shared knowledge and joint learning.
So thank you again to all of you. So the next appointment is in 1 year from now for the Organic Innovation Days, but we will meet again in 10 years from now to celebrate the 25% organic land in Europe. I wish you a lovely day. Thank you very much for being with us at the Organic Innovation Days. I hope all the participants are like me, giving you a round of applause for your contribution. And I would like to close the session, and I wish you a very nice day, all of you. Greetings from Brussels. Ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye. The best
Bye-bye.
for your event. Bye.